Are we live? I hope we're live.
Live. Otherwise, we'd be talking from heaven, and that's a whole different show.
Hello and welcome to the one before. This isn't the normal show. This is the one before. Obviously, we are on at 8 p.m. as usual. But tonight, our guest has not turned up for some reason. I don't know why. But I'm joined by these two beautiful people. And we are going to talk about why stories are inspiring to hear. So please all share this, guys, everyone. And let's just kick start. Obviously, welcome back, Nick. I haven't seen you in practically forever. So how are you?
I'm good. It's good to be back on your show and catch up again. Yes, no, I'm well, thanks. Yeah, no, excited to be here. So yeah, good to be here again.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I know you've got a podcast as well, like where you stream on YouTube, and so yeah, just give a little bit of an insight because you do similar to what we do in getting stories out there. Like obviously, I've had the privilege of being on the show, and I hope to come back at some point. But yeah, just give a little bit of insight in what you do and how you get stories out there.
Yeah, well, Adam, yeah, you've been on the show and definitely get you back at some point. So I have a YouTube channel. I'll confess I don't do the interviews as consistently as I should, but I interview people who either share their sort of expertise in their niche to help, so people can use that to be more successful in their business. But also I interview a lot of people to share their stories. So I interview writers, authors, speakers, entrepreneurs. I think similar to you, there's so many people out there who have fantastic stories and experiences and knowledge, and I think we talk about storytelling today, but I mean I think that's how we get inspired and motivated by hearing other people's stories and what they've done, what they've achieved, perhaps how they've got over challenges in life. And so I'm always looking for interesting people to interview on my channel. So my channel is Secret Influence TV on YouTube. And yeah, no, that's me.
You said Seek
Well,
Influence?
I highly recommend Nancy.
Yeah, I'll get you on Nancy.
There's a reason why we're all here together, isn't there? And story. Wow, we wake up in the morning and, well, depends upon what our routine is. I reach for coffee. I love coffee. I mean, what's water without coffee? And then I reach for some form of inspiration. I'm getting better at spending a little bit more quality time with me first thing in the morning. And I'm very grateful that the universe wakes me bright and early. So I get that time alone. And then I seek out those who bring me something. And that story, whether I'm listening to someone else's podcast or I am touching back with someone that I love, I'm looking to interact with a character. And that's what we do. It's life without story is.
I mean, I agree. I think in storytelling as well, it's one of the things that since the dawn of time, we're humans have been telling stories, as a way of teaching other people, pass on knowledge and teaching them, from the, what dangers are, and storytelling, but storytelling to entertain. I think it's the oldest form of communication. Storytelling is the oldest way that we've engaged and communicated to people. It's literally since the dawn of time. I think it's always been such a powerful way of inspiring other people and
Absolutely,
It's
language, well, we've already got Canada tuning in anyway. We've already got Canada with Robert Brooker. Obviously, he's put "What's water without coffee? H2O."
Well, and I'm from Canada, so that's where the accent comes from.
Well, speaking of coffee, I've actually gone over a year without coffee.
Wow.
Over a
I'm
year.
impressed.
But, and I'm actually going to explain why. Because I used to drink between 6 and 8 cups of coffee a day. And my insomnia and my mental health was bad, really bad. I was having depressive episodes left, right, and centre. And I thought, you know what? I went to sleep and I was depressed. I woke up and I'm thinking, I can't live like this anymore. So I literally got up and I'm like, herbal tea all the way. I want to try herbal tea. So I went out, I brought peppermint tea, I tried it, and I've been fixated on it ever since. So I have like peppermint tea, I have pomegranate, I have spiced orange.
I think I'm sort of
Yes.
I've not managed. I may now admit I need my coffee in the morning, but I've moved away from not having the afternoon. So I got a bit of a balance. I have coffee in the morning to wake up, and then I have herbal tea in the afternoon.
Exactly.
So,
that's why I sassily grabbed my my plunger, because I've got chamomile and ginger. I make my own tea. So I'm the same as Adam. I needed to find a way to become more rested and relaxed. I think that's one of the biggest misnomers about tea, is like, well, if I drink lavender tea in the middle of the afternoon, I'm going to fall asleep. No, you're going to simply be more relaxed. And if you're relaxed, then you can become more resourceful. Your mind works differently.
Well, the biggest mistake I actually did was I was on I was invited on a podcast, and it was live in Australia, and it was at 10 o'clock at night, my time. So I thought, you know what? And I normally get tired around about that time. So I thought, you know what? I'll make myself an espresso, which I did. Oh, but did I even sleep that night? No, I didn't. I was up all night, just energized.
That's so deadly.
It leads to so many of the health issues that we have in life. I struggled from adrenal fatigue. So at one time I was drinking between 2 to 3 pots of coffee a day. Yeah, it was quite.
Yeah, I think people forget, that caffeine is it's a drug like tobacco,
sure.
alcohol, and I think we take it for granted, in that sense that everyone drinks coffee, tea, but we forget, it's a stimulant and
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's very socially acceptable.
It is, yeah. I think that's the thing when there's social aspect.
Yeah, well, a big question. Yeah, well, a big question, and I'm going to start with you, Nancy. Why are stories so inspiring to actually hear? Why?
Well, because we're looking for a life outside of the mediocre that we live. We live this life in simpleton, a simple life on a simple couch, the same day old, day after day, and we're looking for excitement. We're looking for a hero. I believe that we're all looking for a hero. I'm a huge fan of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. I have been inspired by stories since I've been a young child. I was an only child. So my books were my balm. That's where I went to. And then when I really struggled with hating my life, I loved, at least, listening to the stories of others, giving myself some hope. Hope.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of hope. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I think stories are so effective because they connect to people on a sort of emotive level. And I think, humans are emotional beings. I think I heard somewhere recently that, we make 99% of our decisions based on emotion. We may justify it and logic afterwards, but at the time, if we buy something or decide to do something, it's actually based on emotion. But we'll use logic to justify why we did that. So we're very emotive beings, and emotion drives our behavior. And I think that stories tap into that. We hear a story, and a story will have an effect on us. It'll make us excited. It'll inspire us. It'll maybe make us sad or make us happy, laugh, and something that has that emotive effect on us is one of the most powerful things. And I think that's why stories work so well. Is that if you read a story and it touches you in that emotive way, you get drawn in and you get get captivated by it. So I think that's why stories are so effective, really.
Absolutely.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And if I may touch on one thing that Nick said, I was trying to explain exactly what you were saying about the emotional aspect of purchases. I had a slight discussion with somebody about that because they said, well, no, that's not true. And I said, every single purchase that you make is based on emotion because you're trying to feed a pleasure. Every purchase, right from potatoes to something that begins with P. I don't know.
It's true. Yeah, we everything has an association, I think, and it's that emotive connection, and maybe some of it's obviously subconscious to an extent, but it's how will something we do affect how we feel, if we react in a certain way or we purchase a certain thing, it's what will be the result of that, and it's how will that make us feel. That's like you say, if it's the potato example, there's lots of food, there's lots of choices there, but it's people choose things because they the feeling associated with that, I think so. And
absolutely.
I
mean, it's funny.
Yeah,
it's funny when you start to see
that's
it.
what I've started doing.
Yeah,
and that's what I've started doing because I'm actually slowly coming away from supermarkets because hang on a minute, Dan's just messaged.
I think one of the, just sort of jump in there, I think one of the...
he thought we was on in next hour.
Time differences, they're so weird. I'm voting for a universal time.
Make things easier, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Well, anyway, going back to what I'm saying is, obviously, Robert, I'll get to your comments in a minute, but I'm just coming away from supermarket foods because I don't trust the industry anymore because you don't know what they're putting in these foods. But even then, it's same with farm foods, fresh foods. You don't know what they're putting in them as well because obviously, I get it, the meat and the eggs and the butter, they're all fresh. But it's what is the animals eating because they're spraying whatever's on the ground. And the cows on that are eating it. So it's like we can't eliminate it, but we can reduce it through our energy.
It's a good point. I think, related sort of the business aspect. I think it's the storytelling, related to businesses. That one of the things that we connect with brands the most is the brands that share their story. And if you look at a business, most businesses, there's 1,000 other businesses doing it. I don't know if you take sort of an accountant or a consultant, a coach, a shop that sells mobile phones. There's thousands of other businesses doing it, and what we actually connect to is not just obviously what they do, but it's their story. Why do they do it? What are their values? Why do they start the business? It's those sort of aspects that really will build that interest, that engagement with a company. And speaking to a friend who's a website designer, he was saying a business that the My Story or the brand story page is one that gets the most engagement on the website because people want to know, what is the story, particularly for small businesses where it's often one person. What is their story? And why someone does something or started doing that is so important. I think So we do connect to stories in the business sense as well. It's a powerful thing, I think.
Well, I think that's why Adam is saying what he's saying, because he wants to purchase from a person, not a corporation.
Exactly. And I think there's a trust thing related to that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's just there's a hope there. There's a hope there, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I think, there's this whole, I think sometimes there's the big corporation, there's that sort of corporate feel, big corporation, big business. Can we trust them? But I think if there's a smaller business, perhaps, an example of a food one, a small food business, and if you can read their story and understand their, the values, motivations, perhaps, you're more likely to trust them because you feel you know them more, you can understand them more. Where yeah, it's I think there's definitely a trust aspect that can relate to storytelling.
Very much.
Okay. Now this one is, obviously we get off this energy, and we've all got a story. Like my motto is, it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, you've got a message, you've got a story. It's all about delivering that message into society. But why do people try and take advantage of people's stories through emotion and ego? That's a big one. I've never asked that before.
That's a big one. And I wonder sometimes about that myself. I was going and cataloging all of my books. I have a lot of books and I'm trying to categorize them so I can find them with ease. And one of the books that I pulled out was on narcissists and empaths. And I think, yeah, right. Yeah. I think that sometimes there is a caricature in the story that the person has signed up for long before they even knew. Before they even knew, they signed up to be that character in your story. That's helped me digest a lot in my life and work through layers of forgiveness. And I don't think that my narcissist necessarily picked me because he was preying on me, but I served a purpose. I served a purpose. We created 3 beautiful children together. That's one of the purposes. But I don't know if it's, I don't know. There's a lot there.
Narcissists are created through trauma, I would say. And I mean severe trauma. So maybe that's come down from ancestors, maybe. I don't know. I'm probably wrong.
I wonder if there's something about I mean, when you share your own story in life, I guess you're opening yourself up to an extent. To the extent you make yourself vulnerable. If you tell your story, you're revealing your personal journey or your experiences, and perhaps sometimes people don't. Some people perhaps aren't comfortable sharing their own story or want to share someone else's story as a protective thing. I mean, I think it'd be great if if we all, I think like everyone's got a story to tell. I think you mentioned earlier, Adam. Everyone's got their own story, but perhaps there is a vulnerability in sharing your story. As opening yourself up. So maybe people use other people's stories as a protective thing.
Well, and within every story, there's the lie.
Mechanism, yeah.
Within every story, there's the lie
Maybe.
too, because it's based on my perspective, and my perspective has been tainted. Everybody's has. So we'll all look at the same scene and see something different. We'll look at the same characters and see something different layers and levels of growth. And I remember I was talking to my one son about the fact that his father was always late. And he says, "Oh, right, Mom, you're the one that was always late." And I had to really listen, be a good listener to hear why he said that and to realize he was right from his perspective.
It's an interesting one, that actually. Yeah, I mean, I think when someone tells a story about the experience and you ask someone else their version of that, that story, and what you'll find is that everyone will tell the story different because they have their own perception of what actually happened, and that's an interesting point. I mean, certainly from my own experiences, my father left when I was sort of 4 years old and went to Thailand, is in and out of our lives, and his version of what happened, and my experiences, and or my mother, her experiences, all very different versions of the same story. I think it's a good point, that, Nancy, isn't it? We all tell our own story of something that happens often.
Well, it's fascinating, and I love that aspect. That's why I participated in the anthologies, to be a small writer in the book of stories, because it was more comfortable for me. And then I could learn about other people, and through learning from other people, I could evolve more into myself. Adam and I were texting back and forth about the difference between recovering and recreating who we are. And that's interesting, right? Do we recreate? Do we recover? Who am I?
It's that's an interesting one, isn't it?
We learned something through that chat.
Yeah. It's wild. It's really, really wild. And then you wake up the next day.
Yeah, but have you noticed though, when people... Yeah. Oh, right. I don't know what's going on. Here we go. Right. Have you noticed when people are actually telling their stories, they're starting off negative? What happened to Nancy then? Are you there, Nick?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Is everyone there? Can everyone hear me?
There
Yes.
we go. There's just a little tiny glitch.
I mean, just to add on.
Anyway, what I was saying is, have you noticed when people are actually... when people are sharing their stories, they start off negative, talking all negative, but then they get a little bit anxious when they go talking about the positive. Have you noticed that?
I think there's also obviously ways of sharing your story. I think the classic thing of a story is even with a really perhaps negative experience is what you learned from it. I think that's a classic thing of a story, isn't it? If you could be sharing a very genuine negative experience, or very traumatic experience, but if you show what you learned from it, then it turns it into an inspirational story. It turns something positive. I think a story by nature, I think stories can up and down. If you're telling a story, often they'll have their moments where something positive happened and then something challenge came along and it was negative, and that's the classic thing of the story, up and down, and that's what keeps the interest and the hook. But I suppose the classic thing is, if you're telling a very perhaps negative story about something really challenging times, very negative at the time, if at the end of it you can finish with something positive that came out of it, something you learned from it, then obviously it's that's a classic positive story in that sense, isn't it? That's what people will be inspired by, that that you came out and you learned. Maybe not your life was 100% happy and positive in it, but you learned something from it. I think that's the classic thing of a story, isn't it? That lesson at the end.
It is. It's like song. It's like song. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. It's that dirty laundry. It's all of those songs that are story in themselves. One of my greatest storytellers, Queen. I'm enamored with story in music, and it's very, very similar. We talk about our problems, and I think we're looking for a solution often, but sometimes we just want to gripe.
Songs are stories. Most songwriters tell they're based on experience they've had, and And if you listen to stories, if someone's telling a story through a song, and often songs are, sort of that up and down journey through, of that experience they've had. And
yes, especially depending upon the genre.
Of course, no, 100%.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, and things do get better. They do, and this is why we are our greatest teacher. We are our greatest self-critic, and we are our greatest teacher. And I always say it doesn't matter who you talk to, whether it's a friend, family member, work colleague, a teacher, a doctor, or whoever, psychologist, psychiatrist, it doesn't matter, or whatever textbook you want to read, whatever research you want to do, the only person that knows you is you. That's it. Only you know what goes on in there and understands it.
Yes.
It's one of the things I do is I do quite a bit public speaking, and I'm a member of the Toastmasters Club for a long time. And there's a saying that it's people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And if you in storytelling is the best technique you can use when you're doing a speech presentation. Because that's what draws people in and connects. It always connects. It connects on an emotive level, and in some ways, if you're telling a genuine story, there's different stories you could to make a point. You could give a happy story, or it could be a really traumatic story. But people will remember it, and it will affect them because it's genuine. It's like Adam said, it's their story. And I think that's the thing. It's that's why it's so powerful, because people don't. If you read something and someone speak, people won't necessarily remember what is said or what they read. But if it has that, we'll always remember how it makes them feel. And stories have that ability, through the emotion to affect how people feel.
Well, and that's where some people will choose the horror movies and the horror stories. I find that very intriguing. Very, very, very intriguing. My family knows quite well that when I come over, they have to change the channel. I can't watch anything that's frightening. I choose not to. Sure. I really don't. I've had enough nightmare in my life. I choose to have something that's a little bit more. I like adventure. Give me a good race car. I love that. But I choose not to be purposefully frightened.
No, I mean, I'm the same, but I can understand it from the point of view of, like you said, people want to have, I guess that impact of what's it that changes their heightened emotion, when they feel wow, that. But no, it's not my style of genre, but
yeah,
it is. See, that's the difference between me and you, Nancy. I love horrors. I absolutely love them. And the last horror I actually scared my partner with was actually the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, which came out last year.
Definitely horror.
Definitely.
The new one. Yeah, but I'm after seeing the new Meg 2 as well. I'm after seeing that. And also the new Saw film.
I saw that one.
Oh, yeah. Don't say anything about it. I want to see it.
Great big shark. But you know what it is? It's the difference in what it is that we want to experience in our lives at that time. I love story. I'm rewatching the series Outlander. It's something that I find intriguing, and I can't quite remember the ending, so that makes it even more fun. And I get to see it again from a different me.
I guess it's escapism, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why
you know what?
Yeah,
well, speaking of stories, I want to add to that, Nancy, because I want to bring up the Megalodon as well, because all these stories and everything we're coming across, it is perspective, you're right, but it's also theories as well, which means nobody actually knows whether it's a truth or a lie, because it's just what we are made to believe. And here's my prime example. There are many, many people in the world that believe the Megalodon isn't here anymore. It's not. I believe it is.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, I mean, I guess that's
Who knows?
I mean, storytelling. It's a lot of conspiracy stories. They conspiracy theories. Or if you look at even some of the political elections in America, and Trump telling his story. I mean, and a lot of storytelling can be controversial, and it's someone's perspective of what's happening or what's happened. But yeah, it's not necessarily always clear, what the truth is, but definitely. Yes.
I love how we were talking about horror movies and it shifted to politics.
I'm related.
Just a bit.
Yeah, well, anyway, let's move away from politics a minute. And welcome, Dan. I apologise. It is the time difference. I'm going to say it bluntly. Time differences in different countries is a pain in the freaking ass.
Right. Yeah, I had it on 3 p.m. I apologize. So it's like 2:30 here. And I was like, what? It's now?
Yeah.
Where are you from, Dan?
New York. New York City.
2:30 in the morning. Right.
It's 2:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, in the afternoon.
But working late hours. I'm a tattoo artist, so to me it's kind of morning.
Yep.
No, I'm not Canadian, Robert, by the way. I'm not Canadian. But yeah, I'm glad we're talking about these topics. So I'm going to hit you straight with this, Dan. Why are stories so inspiring to hear?
I think everything is a story, but I think that when we break it down, we construct into like a story with a beginning, a middle, and end, and kind of a path. It helps us better, understand the world and better configure the world. That would be my short answer.
Mic drop. That was good. That was really good.
Summed it up.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd repeat myself with this, and I'm going to repeat again because I asked these two, and I'm going to ask you, why do people, when we're sharing our story, whether it's powerful, whether it's severe, whatever, because we've all got one, it doesn't matter who you are, we've got one. Why do people take advantage of our stories through emotion and ego?
That's probably a deep dive into psychology, so it kind of depends probably on the person or whatever. But I think that when it comes down to is like you have I hate to break down like this, but you have like the makers and doers, and you have the hangers on who want to like feed off the makers and doers, and it's like, oh well, you've got something good going on. Why don't I grab some of your polish? And like I'll put it on me. That way I won't have to do any work. But like, look, I'm the big man. It's kind of like you have those like celebrities, like they're fake celebrities. They'll pretend like there's somebody famous. Like I think Paul McCartney had one. Like there's a guy that looks like him who was claiming he was Paul McCartney, but he's not.
Fair enough.
True.
Fair enough. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is an open discussion anyway, so anyone can say anything.
Well, and that's
Just
where
don't
the
try
name
and kick us
dropping
off.
comes in. The name dropping comes in from that situation as well. Whereas if we feel uncomfortable in a group or a setting, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, well I know Dan.
Right. There have actually been people that have like made a fake Facebook profile, made a fake, website. Like I'm pretty well-known tattoo artist. People have shown up at tattoo conventions with my tattoos in their portfolio. So people do that stuff. I mean, it's very short term. It always gets called out, but yeah, like there's like Stephen King has somebody else called Stephen King, and I guess like the middle initial a little bit different. So this author feeds off of Stephen King's name to sell his stuff. So he sells a lot of it on Amazon. A lot of people will call him out and be like, "Hey, I bought this thing. It was Stephen King, but it's not the Stephen King." So yeah, people do that. Again, you have the makers and doers, and you have the people who try to feed off them.
Yeah, Wayne Dyer called them ducks and eagles.
Yeah.
One baggers and two baggers.
Right.
There's those people that will, at the end of the checkout, they're putting your groceries in a bag, and they're like 1 banana, 2 banana, and then there's the guy at the other, the difference of that, and they're doing, I've got your vegetables in this one, your fruits in this one, and I've got your breads in that. Can I help you out to the vehicle, right? And there's movers and shakers and louts. I call them louts.
Louts. I think this is kind of improving over time too. It's like again, I don't do a deep dive into psychology because there's probably a lot there, but it's like I think that people who are more authentically themselves tend to be nicer people, like because you're fulfilled by yourself. So if other people need a little help, you go, "Oh, sure, I'll help you." Whereas if you're putting up this pretense and you're hoping everybody buys your little like psychodrama, then you don't have any room to help anyone else.
I guess sometimes some people see other people are more successful and they think, well, I'll do what that person's doing, and it's the same with stories. If someone hears someone else's story and they say, well, that's a good story, I'll make it my story. I think that's I had a friend who had met someone who's telling a story, and it was a story he had heard and shared, and it had been shared, and then someone else was sharing as their story, and it was a story that it was a bit changed. It was whispers where it changed, the story changed and then come full circle and shared back. But I think there is that thing of we copy what we sometimes or take something someone else is doing well and adopt ourselves. And it's the same with storytelling, isn't it? Some people see someone's story and think, well, I'll take that. That'll become my story.
I know people like that. Like they'll start telling you stories. You're like, wait a minute, that's Bob's story. Why is Paul telling me Bob's story?
Yeah, it's not your story. Yeah, that's true.
Well, and I think there's such an exciting aspect when you get to know a person on a deeper level. Right? When you get to know a person on a deeper level and they are beginning to tell you their heartfelt story, their heartfelt emotion. You hear the cliche, tell me your why. And, it's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to share with somebody. But we've been programmed quite often by the branding of life to have a textbook answer as to my why or my elevator pitch, right? Like that kind of stuff has taken away from people just being people.
Right. You got to present yourself to society in a certain way. And there are people that try to tell you this is the best way to present yourself, even if it's not authentic.
Yeah.
I think that's a good word, authentic. I think, the best stories are the ones that are, they're authentic. They're your own true experience, and it's not something you've heard, and you've adapted and a bit generic, and you've taken it as your own story. But if it's authentically your own story, then it's going to be unique because it's your own story. It can't be something that someone else's experience because it's your story, your experience, your perspective. So I think that's where you would perhaps see where someone's telling genuinely their own story with someone else's because it's authentic.
Yeah, that was wild.
It's the Matrix. The Matrix came in.
Well, and depending upon what our chosen passion is, I don't like the word career.
Absolutely.
I don't like it at all. Yeah.
I think it's weird because
I don't know what the hell is going on here.
Becomes your career. Maybe your career dominates. You don't want that to be your career, but say you're struggling with something else. I mean, I see it all the time because I write books and I do a lot of art for like bands and for magazines and novels and so on. And there are people that do that stuff, but they work a day job. I'm like, oh, what's your day job? And they tell me, but it's like, you almost have to drag that out of them because that's not, they wouldn't consider that their career. They consider the novel they're writing, their career. And this is just what's paying the rent for right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, speaking of careers, the only people I actually feel sorry for is the younger generation. And I'm going to back that up because here we go.
Pretty
this is
broad
what's probably going to
stroke.
get me shut down here. This is what's going to get me shut down. What's that?
I said that's a pretty broad stroke, this whole younger generation.
It's sounding like Don Cherry, you people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
just teasing.
What do you mean by people?
No, I'm talking about people that's within the education system.
Right.
I'm talking about people that's in the education system because obviously this is what's probably going to get me shut down because I'm always exposing them for how bad they are because I cannot praise the education system at all because they don't get taught about like that. They get taught about mental health. Fair enough, good. But they don't get taught about the emotion side of mental health or the psychological impacts that it can have on you. They only get taught about the physical. And that's what pisses me off. So this is why when it comes to careers, I've actually applied yesterday to be a mental health support worker within schools up and down like my country.
Lovely.
And supporting this next generation. But the only thing is, I just need to volunteer within schools, and it's like, which school would actually let me in with the mindset I've got?
There's always an opening. There's always an opening. You just have to find the way. When I think of my children and their chosen careers and the education that they received, it brought them some goodness. And then they just broadened their horizons. And I mean, they definitely went down some sparkly paths. It's their story to tell, not mine. Rabbit holes.
Rabbit hole, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where it is. I mean, I look at Dan and I think of a friend of mine here in Canada that does tattooing. And I asked him why he got involved in it in the first place. So I'm curious, Dan, why did you begin the art of tattooing?
Well, I'll make it a short story because it could be a long story. But so I when I was in when I lived with my parents, like we lived in isolated military bases all over the country, even all over the world. I lived in Germany for 3 years. But we didn't really have a TV because my parents didn't see any value in TV, so we didn't have one until 5th grade. And that was only when my grandmother felt sorry for us, and gave us the TV. But sorry, my dog's in the way. Yeah. So what I do is we'd always have a local library, and I'd go there and I'd check out a huge stack of books, and I'd read all the books. So I lived in this kind of like fantasy world of like sci-fi and horror and whatever. And we lived on like isolated army bases, and they're like old training grounds for World War II. So me and my friends played soldiers with bottle rockets and stuff. But I always wanted to be a writer and artist. I always had these stories in my head. I pretend I was in fantastical worlds running around. And then, as I started to get older, I was like drawing all the stuff for, people's like their bands or, their, whatever club they're appearing at or whatever. And, but my parents are super religious. So at some point they go, yeah, that's not a job. That's a hobby. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I kept doing it. Like, I'm pretty, I pretty much stick to my guns. I'm pretty stubborn. So we didn't get along. And eventually I ended up homeless. I was homeless for 8 months, like living in the woods homeless. But eventually I got a job. I put myself through art school. And I got some local galleries. I was doing some stuff for like local magazines. And my teacher said, hey, if you want a career in art, you have to move to New York. So I moved to New York, but you don't get a career in art right away. So I'm interviewing with DC Comics and Penguin Books and Analog and Isaac Asimov and all this stuff. And in the meantime, there's a friend of my brother's, and he saw my stuff. He's like, that guy should tattoo. So I started tattooing, and I thought, well, I'm going to do this till I get a quote real job, and then, but tattooing evolved a lot. And I was thinking it was like more that old school traditional approach. And I was like, I want to do more detailed, realistic stuff. But people were doing that by the time I started, so I see people like Guy Atchison, Robert Hernandez, I really looked up to. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And now I've been doing it for 24 years. And, I own a tattoo shop and I love it.
The storyteller.
Well, I mean, it's good to hear, what you say, Dan. That you love it, and that's, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? If you do what you love and you're passionate about it, then then you're gonna be good at it, because you have a starting point doing something you're passionate about, and certainly with storytelling, it's I since a young kid I was writing short stories, and I did it for myself. So I love writing, and it's grown a bit of following my stories and looking at getting published. But if you're doing something that you're passionate about, then that the success will come. That story will grow. Because what better starting point than doing something that you enjoy and passionate about, like you said, Dan.
Well, in a lot of it, I write quite a bit too. When I write, I feel like I've had kind of like a multi, rocky road life. So, but I have a lot of experience to draw from. So when I write, I incorporate a lot of the elements of stuff I've gone through. Like I was in a knife fight with a crackhead. My car flipped over. I was homeless living in the woods. I got beat up by Nazi skins. So all that stuff kind of goes into my short stories, or at least like remnants of that.
And you can't. I mean, you couldn't. There's sort of stories. Well, so
everyone's coming in at once.
Yeah. Well, I think what we should do. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, I think what we should do is wrap this up early, because obviously I know there's another show in like 10 minutes' time. So, yeah. But Dan, again, apologies for the time difference, but I want to bring you back. I really do, to get your story out.
Okay. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, the 6 degrees of separation, or whatever the number is, how we're all connected. Because I'm banking a dime. Yes. I'm a little bit frugal in my betting, that I know an artist that Dan, because your story is so similar to so many stories of people that I know. So I'm curious.
Well, you might know each other. I've been all over the world. A lot of people know me. Not to boost myself up, but just a lot of people know me. So what's your friend's name? I've got some friends.
Pardon me.
What's my real name? No, what's your friend's name?
Nancy.
Okay. Yeah,
second name is
I know so many Nancy's. It's hard to tell.
But there's only one Nancy Nance.
But yeah, I'll come back on. Just let me know. And it seems like it's a 2-hour time.
We will get this time difference accurate.
Yeah, 2.
I think
clearly, yeah. It's like 10 to 8 in the evening here.
Right.
What's that?
Yeah. So it's a 2-hour time difference, and I guess we scheduled as if it was a 3-hour time difference. But
the only way that I can remember is I go on the YouTube channel to see, and it says it counts down and tells me how far away.
Right. Well, I have notes, and I see it just 3 p.m. So I don't know if that was on my side or your side, but we'll get it straight for the next time. That's fine.
It was a blast. It was great.
Of course. Right.
Me both.
All right. Thanks for me.
Thanks, everyone. Right.
Bye.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Right. Guys, whoever's tuned in, don't go anywhere. Obviously, get a drink, have a smoke, whatever. Deal with the kids. Gag them or something. I don't know. I'm joking, by the way. But we're back on in 10 minutes' time, and we've got Philip Monhagen, and we're going to be discussing how he overcame depression and eating disorders, to how he actually helps men's mental health. So we're going to be discussing that with him. I think you two are coming on with us, aren't we?
Yeah, I could.
You
I could
two
stay
hopping
on.
on?
Yeah, I'll stay on. That'd be good.
Nancy?
I'll be the Rose. Sure.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. Right. We'll be back in about 5 minutes' time. So, see you later.
See you
See you.
later.